What's up, everybody? Let me get my logo out of the way. I'm all up in there. I am Gary Jackson of Hip2B². I am super excited about tonight's live stream. We have some amazing comedians, both local here in Knoxville and all the way from, I would say, Kiwi or New Zealand or by the way of Los Angeles. So I'm super excited to bring in all these comedians. I'm just going to say hello and welcome to the show. And then I'm going to bring to the stage from Tiny Stage, Allie Simpson. Hey, what's up, Allie? How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here.
How do you
Talking
feel
about
being
comedy?
How do you how do you feel being like trapped in my little video studio thing right there beside me? Is it weird?
It's not as no, it's great. There's lights in here. There's amps. There's exercise equipment. I basically could probably hang out in here for a long time. If there were snacks, I could just live here. How much is rent?
You know what's funny is I was watching you before we came on the air, and you were just scooting around on the bar stool, and I was like, "Yay!"
I'm on a little scooter, like, woo, yay, bye. This is great for my ADD, you guys. This is like kind of the best.
You know, it's funny. Poor Brandi. She's upstairs in the other studio. Brandi, also the radical storyteller. How are you doing, Brandi Augustus?
I am fantastic. I wish that I could scoot around too, but y'all got a rug over here. So the rug really hinders scootability. So
yeah, we're kind of limited in your ability to kind of get around. You know what's funny? During the last live broadcast that we had, Beth was basically using the family pictures behind you there, saying, this is my family. So yeah. So there you go. You can take those pictures if you want to.
No, I want the Snoopy.
Snoopy, by the way, Snoopy is that is what I love. So I just want to let you know, love Snoopy. That is my add to the creativity of this room. But there's one more person I wanted to add, and I'm going to shut up, by the way, because I want to kind of throw all of you guys together because I have so many things to talk about and ask you all of you questions. So I'm bringing to the live stream all the way from Los Angeles, California. This is the one, the only Rocky. There's Rocky.
He looks terrified.
Okay. Yes. Right. How old is Rocky, by the way, Camille?
He's 10.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we just shot an episode of the Charlie TV. He had his own episode about, like having a midlife crisis.
That's great. So I'm super excited. So Camille, this is going to be your first time coming to Knoxville. Is that correct? Ever or Tennessee? Yeah. Knoxville or Tennessee?
I've driven through Tennessee, but it's the first time I've been in Knoxville.
Oh, okay. And so what is I've got Allie and Brandi to deal with any stereotypes. What are you anticipating when you arrive in Knoxville? What are you thinking is going to happen?
Originally I was thinking redneckish, but then I talked to you and you were like, no, it's very progressive. And I was like, hey, that's nice to hear. Like, I just, being from Boston / living in LA, I'm like very East Coast, and so,
right.
You get a little the stereotypes of Tennessee.
Well, Brandi, would you say it's redneck here in Knoxville? I mean, you'll be honest. You're the storyteller.
Okay, so when I first moved here in 2010, I got told that I spoke real well for a colored gal.
Oh, snap.
Oh, I was right. Really? Oh my God.
So there's that. I mean, there's progressiveness too, but yeah, that also.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And how about you, Allie? What would you say from
Well, I only moved here like a couple of years ago. I too am an East Coast elite, mostly from New York and Maine. And so yeah, I live about an hour south of here in the real sticks. And I was telling people, like, guys, there's just Confederate flags everywhere, like decorating the trucks and the trailers. And they're like, yeah, what do you expect? Are you surprised? And it's like, no, surprise is not the emotion I'm expressing here. It's kind of just like out of control is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's a little, but Knoxville, not that. A little more, I mean, I guess cities in a lot of places, a little more.
No, during we're in a local election season right now, and during local elections, the Confederate flags on trucks seem to bloom.
Oh wow.
More, so
seasonal colors.
So that's if you see them, that just know that somebody's fighting for a position somewhere.
Wow. So I'm glad. So are you nervous, Camille? Are you excited?
I mean, nothing can be worse than headlining in Miami, Oklahoma.
I'm sorry, Miami, Oklahoma, or Miami or Oklahoma?
Agent was like, "Oh, you got a gig in Miami." One would think Miami, Florida. Why would you? And I remember I was like, "Oh, cool." And then just as I'm getting on the flight, I'm like, "Where's this going?" And I'm like, and I brought my family, and I was like, it was like in a casino in Miami, Oklahoma. But I mean, like,
did you guys bring all your flippy floppies and your beach clothes?
You're like, oh my God, I love Miami, spring break. You know what I mean? Like, and then I was like, oh my God. And it was like and I just remember I got in there, and then there was like this one guy that loved comedy, and he had a shotgun. He held a shotgun, and like, when you think of a redneck, you don't literally think of a red neck. Right, you know what I mean? Right. Like, he was the reddest person I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? Like,
I call those people meat faces. They have high blood pressure and they drink too much, too much light beer.
He was like literally a cannibal, and like I don't know, and he was, and it was just like that was my first very middle America type of gig, and I just feel like my comedy is a little bit more, I don't know, like read between the lines type comedy. It's not like I got a dick, you know what I mean? Like, it's not. I mean, I can go there, but I feel like, and then I was like, oh my God, I don't even have any dick jokes. You know what I mean? Like, that's all that's gonna work here. You know what I mean? I'm like trying to think things up, and then in those kind of shows, I feel like you're like, I'm just gonna talk to the meat eating guy. He doesn't understand anything I'm saying, so and he's just smoking, the whole, I was like, because you can still smoke in casinos, because anyway, so that was so I think Knoxville is going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Good. Yeah. Good segue. Good segue. Yeah. So how did you get, so I want to go around the room here, or this Zoom room that we have here, and ask how everybody got started. So like, Allie, how did you get started in comedy? How did you get into this?
Just like everything I do, just haphazardly, it's just like, it's something I'd always wanted to do. And probably about, I guess back in 2015 is when I started. And it was the year after I moved out of New York City, where one would think one would logically start stand-up comedies in New York City, because that's where you do it. But I moved up to Maine for a job, and I was really broke. And one of the things to do around there was go to see free comedy shows. And I was like, you could just do comedy in Maine, like in a state that doesn't even exist except for in Stephen King novels. You can do it here. And then I just started doing it because there was just all these, fun weekly bar shows, and started producing shows up there, and just went all around New England, just all the time, just doing the grind, up until COVID. That's how, and I always wanted to, because, watched a lot of Comedy Central and stuff growing up, loved comedians, wanted to be a comic, never thought I could actually do it until I just saw, just people do it. And so, got up there and loved it ever since.
How about you, Brandi? How did you get into this?
I first got introduced to stand-up comedy in Knoxville through my ex-husband. He was a musician. Yeah, he was a musician, and he was a open micer. But this was at a time where the comedy scene in Knoxville was very, very male dominated, and nobody was funny. Every single open mic I went to, I'm like, why are we why do we come here? Like, wait a minute. Like, I know these are your friends, but why do I have to participate? And then I started hosting Po' Boys and Poets here in Knoxville, which is like a poetry showcase. And when we did not have, like, we would have 2 hours at the Pilot Light to put on the show, but it was like participation based. So if we didn't have any poets that would come up and share, I would have to fill that time, you know? And so a lot of the nights it was just me telling all my business, and come to find out it's funny stuff, you know? Because I don't share my poetry. I write poetry, but I don't share my poetry. I feel like poetry is a lot more personal.
Yeah, it's very intimate. Yeah.
It's extremely intimate for me. But I can get on stage and tell a room full of strangers about how I hate sucking dick. You know?
Right, exactly. But did you think you were funny? I mean, you had to know you were funny to try to be funny.
Always. I was even the one in high school that I wasn't the class clown, but I was the one that people always looked to for like comic relief or like, you know, to lighten situations. I've always been like the funny friend. But I've also been like poor and fat. So, you know, you got a lot to fight against, and you got to find the funny in something.
Right.
I won the Pick a Side Stupid comedy competition in Bristol on Saturday. And the person
this last Saturday.
This last Saturday.
Wow.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
But I beat the headliner that was on the show before, you know.
Wow.
She stayed after, and she was like, God, you're so quick. Why are you so funny? I was like, well, because I'm fat and I had to be. You know, like I had to be quick with the comebacks growing up in Cincinnati, or, you know, you really go get your feelings hurt. Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And now, so last but of course not least, how about you, Camille? Like, how did you get into this world? Did you want to do stand up, or did you want to do acting? You're a director, you're a writer. How did you get into this?
Yeah. I mean, I always was doing sketch comedy, and I wrote and performed on many episodes of this show called the Comedy Central Sit and Spin Show, which is, there's a lot of comedians that did this show. It was like it was like one of the longest running Comedy Central shows, and they'd air the episodes on Comedy Central, and it was like a storytelling show. But like Sarah Silverman was on it. There's a lot of comedians on it, and I was like, oh, how do I make the jump? Because I was acting and writing and on TV and films, and finally I did. A friend of mine who I did sketch comedy with was like a comedy coach, and so he's like, "Come on, Camel Toe, let's do this." And and
is that your name? Is that your nickname?
Yeah, no, he just I don't know. He called me that. He's Jerry. He's a good friend of mine.
Because I noticed you changed your to headliner. That was what you were gonna have. Camel. yeah, you were gonna have Camille Solari, Camel Toe, and you changed it. But anyway, go ahead.
I was, here we go. Just Camel Toe.
Oh, you're gonna change it back. Oh, well, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Anyway, so and then I was became very good friends with this late night, a friend of mine named Bill Zamey, who just died. He's a good friend of mine from Chicago, and he was my mentor in comedy. He wrote all the late night television biographies, like for Johnny Carson he was friends with, and so he was like, Camille, you've got to do stand up. Like, you have to do stand up. And so finally I did it. I did like a workshop for intense workshop, and then I did a showcase, and then I got a manager right off the first showcase. It was like the first show was at the Comedy Store, and then and that was like I did have a strong 10 minutes. It was like, and then of course, as you guys know, you're like, I got a strong 10 minutes, I can headline, you know what I mean? And you're like, and then you just suffer through the rest of the years. No. But I got, and then the jump was about, I had only been doing comedy for a couple of years, and then I was on the Arsenio Hall Show, and that made it so that I could, and I was pregnant with Charlie, my first child. And then from that point on, I could headline anywhere I wanted, though I wasn't quite ready to headline. But once you get like a late night television spot, you should be able to headline. And I did, but I was like, oh, I had to work really hard to get the rest of the material. And then there you go. And then
I'm glad you brought up the Arsenio Hall. So, where you were the first stand-up comedian to do a live stand-up comedy show pregnant before Ali Wong, before some of the other ones. You did that. So what behind the scenes, was there like a little angst? Was there?
It was weird because I was I was in a pilot of this TV show called Funny Girls. Like I was in the pilot, and then they were picking the final cast. It was on Oxygen Network, and I mean, I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but anyway, I do.
No one's gonna watch it. Don't worry about it. Nobody's watching it now, so just enjoy. Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, they were like, okay, so we're still figuring out who's going to be on the show. I'm like, hey, I'm pregnant, and they're like, oh, and then I was suddenly not on the show anymore. I'm not saying it was because of that, but it felt like that. And Tiffany Haddish was also fired off the show too, so I feel much better. Anyway,
I'm sorry. So you both were fired? Was she wasn't pregnant?
Both of us. No, we just. I mean, fired. Whatever. It's a TV show.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I got you.
They're like, who knows why they're picking who they're picking, but I think they wanted like, hipstery girls making it how they're making it in Hollywood as a up and coming comedian, right? And I think probably being pregnant was like, ooh, I don't think so. But you're like, I'm knocked up. That's a struggle. No. Anyway, so thank God for Arsenio Hall, and Claudia Kagan was a casting director, and I showcased at the Laugh Factory, and that's how they picked the spots, I guess. That's how they were doing it. So sometimes they'll put a showcase together, and the casting director was Claudia Kagan, and she picked me to be present to Arsenio, and then Arsenio was George Lopez also was on it, and he was like, let's do. It was perfect because they're like, you're really gonna get Camille on the show very soon because she's gonna have that baby, and then her material won't work. And that was very lucky. It was lucky to have that.
Wow.
Oh, we better get her on quick. And then I was on, and then 2 months later, the whole series was canceled. I was like, it was like Indiana Jones getting under the, like.
Right before the spikes show up and the wall closes.
Yeah, exactly. So
baby boulder.
It was really cool. It was awesome.
So one last thing is, what was Arsenio Hall like? I was a huge fan of Arsenio Hall. Super nice, very easy to work with.
Yeah. I mean, he is so.
You probably didn't get to see him for 10 minutes, probably, but
yeah. No, he talked to me on the show, which was really nice. Like, you do your bit. They don't even. This was what was surprised me. I was like, you do your 5 minutes, right? And they don't like. There's no rehearsal. You're on national television. You know what I mean? Like, there's 8 million people watch. Like, and you're like, okay, you're on. You know what I mean? You're like, I could say anything. You know what I mean? Like I just thought. And I remember.
Were you tempted?
I was frightened. You know what I mean? Like I'm so scared. And like he's so nice. You know what I mean? He talked to the audience. And was like, just so you know, Camille's a very different kind of comedian. Like, you're not going to see anything like this. Like, she's not your normal average comedian, So, it was really nice. Like, he really he's a really thoughtful guy. And then there you go. And then I was on, and afterwards he talked to me for a while on the show. I think they ended up cutting that bit from national, but but yeah.
Did you feel Charlie kick while you were doing your set?
I don't know. I had such butterflies in my stomach. I was like, I don't know if that's freaking kicking or if there's a butterfly there. She's swatting at the butterfly. Like, I don't even. It was frightening. And my husband Hamish was with me, and he was like, "Are you scared?" I'm like, I'm frightened. You know what I mean? Like it was the most frightened I've ever been in my life. You know, like
Right.
anyway.
Wow. Well, I mean, look at you now. So so what makes me feel a little bit happier is coming to Knoxville is nothing then. So, right?
No,
There's
it's
no
not
Arsenio.
nothing. It's Knox.
No, I mean, there's not going to be scared. You're not scared to come to Knoxville, is what?
No, I'm not. No. But I do like to. I really like to try and know the crowd and the people, and that's why I always like to try and write a song about it because I think I like to try and take the time to understand where it's not just my set. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I want to make sure I'm like. It's like thoughtful, like the customs of the craft. I headline in more international places. So it's really I'm really excited to headline somewhere in USA because I'm always doing like translations of what that means. Like French people, you're
Right,
like,
right. That's the
fun.
joke.
I know you're not laughing, but that's actually fucking funny. Okay. Sorry.
No, you can swear. You can say whatever you say. You can say fuck if you want to.
Sorry.
Kids aren't watching.
My kids just go, Mommy! Sorry.
You said that you write songs about places though that you go.
What's that? I do. I try my best. Or I had this douchebag song that I did it in Arabic once when I was headlining in Jordan, and they're like, I'm like, what is a Ali Alawak? That means douchebag in Arabic. Like, I don't know. I try and like I did a headline in Malta. I was the first woman comedian to headline there, and I did a song about Malta. I don't know if they appreciated it, but like I felt good about it. You know what I mean? Like,
can we give you suggestions on the song?
I already wrote the song.
You already wrote it. Did you mention breweries? Did you mention kombucha? Did you mention breweries?
Breweries.
You'll see.
Okay. Or is there even like a cameo of a butt chug? Because that was my first experience learning.
People wearing orange, being day drunk everywhere. That's another.
Wow, Camille. Yeah, I sucked. I totally gave Camille the wrong information.
Yeah, you gave me the wrong
chug. What is that? I didn't even know.
That's just something UT students have to do to graduate or something. I think
like in Old School, the movie Old School, you have to butt chug.
Well, I did not see Old School, but what had happened here was a fraternity had literally, like, how you do a cake stand or whatever. They stuck a tube into the guy's butt and filled his inside with beer.
What?
And
no,
he got so drunk.
You get drunker that way?
Hospital. Yes. Oh, wait a minute, Gary. You do not know. I learned so much about alcohol when I moved to Knoxville. Like, white people love to party. Like, y'all really do that better than nobody else. And I learned that sororities, they don't butt chug, and especially if they're like one of the like real prissy sororities or whatever, they're not allowed to drink like in everybody's gaze. So they will soak a tampon and stick it inside of themselves, and that's how they consume their alcohol.
Shut
I'm giving you the definition of it. You ready?
Yes.
Otherwise known as an alcohol enema. An alcohol enema, also known as colloquially as butt chugging or boofing, is the act of introducing alcohol into the rectum and colon via the anus as an enema. Thanks, Knoxville.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did not know. Well, so welcome. Welcome, Camille.
Anyway, this is more of a subjective song, I guess, about a story about a fellow from Knoxville.
You know what's funny is your daughter is secretly hanging out behind you, and she's hearing all of this.
What?
Yeah, she's knowing about butt chugging now. Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to bring up about the Knoxville comedy scene. So the beautiful thing that I really loved about when I came here, because I'm pretty sure that Ali and Brandi have seen me a couple of times, or maybe not. Me and my wife, we come to a lot of the shows. What we were most impressed with is there's a strong female contingent of comics, which I just love. I love that aspect of it because, there's I agree. There's a lot of male domination for, doing stand-up comedy, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. But getting a female's perspective is just so amazing. And not only that, tiny stage comedy is one of those comedy scenes where they allow the woman's voice to really rise, and it's so funny. So, I mean, how did both of you get involved with tiny stage, and how did that happen here in Knoxville?
Well, I just rolled in because I live here now. Like this is the beginning of most of my stories. So I just rolled in. I was living in a van. I rolled in and I just had to check out the local comedy because that's what I do. Perform comedy all over the place. And I kind of expected Knoxville scene to be like 90% of other scenes where it's a bunch of dudes doing all that. And but when I did my first few open mics, there were just all these cool female comics, and it wasn't this like boys club that I was usually used to having to like break through a little bit and be like, no, respect me, just a little, kind, not that hard. and so they were all very welcoming, and they're like, yeah, you're funny, and we like you. Let's be friends, and let's make more comedy together. So that's how I joined the crew at Tiny Stage Comedy, and just started stuff with them. Yeah. So
and you the same, Brandi? Is that how you found out about Tiny Stage?
No, my journey was.
Did you just roll in?
I didn't just roll in, actually. Like I mentioned before, when I was doing the poetry slams, hosting the poetry events. I was using that time to actually start working on my comedy when I decided I wanted to do comedy. And then I started going to the open mics that were held by Beth Tompkins, who actually did the first set of shows.
Yeah, she was with Paul.
Yeah. So Beth was the OG that got me in the game, and I'll always contribute a lot of my start to Beth because Beth gave me the time. Beth never really it took me a long time to learn how to not run the clock, because I am more of a storyteller, and that 5 minutes be hard, So Beth really helped me with that. She put me on my first shows, and doing shows with Beth actually got me booked by another female booker, Connie Burrell, who's been in the game for 10, 15 years here in Knoxville. And Connie is also booked doing another Hip2B².
She'll be. Yeah, she's gonna be. I think she's gonna be on Dwayne Perkins' show, or Caitlin, I believe. She's coming up.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I was doing all these shows or whatever, and me and Rowan were hitting the same open mics, and Rowan, I'm gonna say this because Rowan has said this to me before in public space, that when I came around, because she started a couple of months before me, we're both in our 5-year mark. And she was like, I did not like you when you first started comedy because I didn't understand where you came from and why you were so funny. And I was like, I don't know. But now Rowan is my best friend. She was one of my bestest friends, not just in comedy, but in life. And she's one of the dopest producers. So she had came to me before she was my friend. And after she got over the initial, who are you and where the fuck did you come from? When she saw the need for there not to be to disrupt the male domination in comedy and the stagnation that was there because of it, Rowan and her best friend, Emily Kirsten, decided that, we need to fill a void to make sure that the women in Knoxville are getting the same shot at doing comedy that these men are. And that's when they created Tiny Stage Comedy. Nice. And then she reached out to me a couple of months after that, after the initial inception, asked me if I wanted to host a mic for her. And I was honored that she even had the confidence to do it, because I've never hosted a mic before. I don't have, I never really had the confidence to run my own mic. I've always helped other people run theirs. But when she asked me to host Corner Lounge, I was like, hell yeah, because I wanted to work with Rowan that bad. And we've been doing that for about a year now. I think we're coming up on our year anniversary, either just past our year anniversary for Corner Lounge or coming up on our year anniversary for Corner Lounge. So
wow. So awesome. Would you say the scene is kind of So the Knoxville comedy scene is somewhat new, or is it been around for about 2 or 3 years, or
No,
how
it's
would you
been around
say?
for a long time. Knoxville comedy has
Okay.
been around for a long time, and I'm learning that's been around longer than I have even known. There's a guy that just came back on the scene, and I was asking people like, "Hey, who is this person?" They keep saying that, they're hitting these mics back up, and it was like, "Oh, they used to run this such and such mic down at this place," and that was like 10 years ago.
Right.
So the comedy scene in Knoxville, I think with anything, it just kind of ebbs and flows. And
Right.
one of the things that I've just been saying to all of my creative friends is that in Knoxville right now, we are in a renaissance, and we may not be able to see that
Right.
because whoever sees a renaissance when they're in it, but we are in an
Yeah.
artistic renaissance right now, and comedy is one of the major foundations of that for Knoxville.
Yeah,
The
I
way
agree.
that it is bubbling.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll say when I first, I guess, yeah, when I just came to check things out like 2 years ago, I was sort of like, oh, okay, this is kind of like, because it was kind of right off of like COVID stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm coming from mostly small, like, what I thought was a smaller comedy city. Like, oh, Knoxville's a big city. It's gonna have at least 5 times as much as where I just moved from. But it was like, it seemed very, very small. And just in this past couple of years, even, it just seems like it's exploded with, more shows, more showcases. Well, this is happening now. And yeah, like all others don't tell comedy here now every month. And
Yep.
it's just like, oh yeah, there's like the scene has either bounced back from whatever it was before I came here, or it's just now on this nice upward trajectory. And there's just more people starting comedy, more people getting a lot better at it. And it's kind of exciting. Yeah. Cool.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, the only reason I wanted to come into this place is I just wanted to bring together some of my friends. Me and Camille have done comedy shows in Cebu, Philippines. I think you did Asia quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I just said, I love these local comics. I felt like, no one was really bringing together the New York, LA, Vegas, London, over international. So I was like, let me mash them together. And one of the things I was telling Brandi and Allie before the show started was the beauty of, I'll be biased a bit. I love working with you, Camille. I mean, you're so much fun. All the comics I bring in are just friends of mine. And you're a comic that would say, oh, you're in Vegas? Oh, I got to connect here. Oh, you're in LA? Come on down. I'm going to be doing an open mic. You're so open to bringing them into the fold so they can get that chance. Being on the circuit, there's a lot of assholes out there, and they do not want to share the circuit, but you're not one of them. I mean, I think all of the ones coming from Hip2B² are just like, oh, come on in. I got your back, come into the fold. And so that's something
really
I wanted to try to, and also
You
I
are
was just
so
being very,
Gary, you are so inclusive. You really are. Like when I met Gary, I was in Cebu, and I was like, oh, I got to do a show, and I mean, it was like the red carpet went out in the middle of Cebu, like
yeah.
just
Cebu, and a lot of people don't
area,
even know where Cebu, Philippines is. I think you emailed me that morning. You're like, I don't know if you know me. And I had 3 secret shows ready for you in like
it was
3 or 4
amazing.
days, and you crushed it. By the way, we talked about hecklers. We'll get into heckling a little bit later, but I think during the Cebu show, you had a cat that was heckling you. You're the whole show. You did a whole bit about this cat.
I was like, okay, I've been upstaged by a cat. You know what I mean? Like, it was amazing. And you guys talk about the Brandi, about the renaissance of in Knoxville and comedy. That was what was going on. I felt like in Cebu, it's like there was very, very young, especially young women who were amazing artists, and that's what I was like, wow, like these guys are just wanted any new art form. They're just like completely into and embraced it, and it was just like I'd never seen anything like it, because so many of the city, like LA is sometimes you go to a place that people are dead. You know what I mean? Not
Right.
Of course not. There's amazing
Literally.
shows in LA, but
Right.
but I mean like where depending on the situation, or more Englishy spaces, culturally dead.
Right.
So I shot my comedy special in New Zealand, but I figured them out.
Yeah. So that was something I was going to ask is you've done a lot of international shows. You're actually relocating to New Zealand right now. You're becoming a resident of New Zealand. How
am
are
a
you
resident.
feeling? You are a resident.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, so now how do you feel the New Zealand comedy scene is comparatively to the American comedy scene?
I mean, I'm in the South Island, and
Okay.
there is a friend of mine who runs the Good Times Comedy Club, Snap. He really is a very progressive. He tries to include everyone in his comedy club. So it's a much smaller scene. So there's like the North Island, Auckland, the capital, and then there's like actually Wellington, I believe, is the capital of New Zealand.
You're so American. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like something up there, No, anyway,
right.
It's a smaller scene where I am, but I mean, they really appreciate comedy. Obviously the smaller areas appreciate the comedy, and it's a much bigger scene in the North Island. I don't know if it's the same. Probably, I'm guessing it's like Nashville versus Knoxville, probably. I think.
Yeah, I mean, Knoxville's just starting. Yeah, so Nashville is very mature.
Yeah, we don't have a dedicated comedy club either. We don't have like a Zanies or a Blue Ridge Comedy Club or anything like that.
We're trying to start that.
Yeah, that changed.
Yeah, years ago, I think there was one. Like I looked it up. Of like, was there ever a comedy club here? And I guess
was it really?
Down.
Yeah, there was one called Side Splitters, which is they were there, and then there was a one before Side Splitters. And actually, there's a lady who comes to the Geezers who actually ran Side Splitters. So she comes in and she does open mic there, but she explained that it was really hard. Knoxville was one city that just didn't have a stand-up comedy club. But anyway, but I mean, based on the New Zealand, you got Flight of the Conchords who came from New Zealand. You got like some really very famous comedians that came from that area.
Definitely. Yeah.
We have Johnny Knoxville. That's it.
That's great. You only need Johnny Knoxville.
Actually, that's my next one. I'm trying to see if I can get him to come home.
We have Leanne Morgan.
We also have Henry Cho as well. He came from Knoxville too, right? So,
I mean, if you do grab, there'll be some more. There'll be more.
Well, my understanding too is Alex Haley came from Knoxville. Is that correct? And then moved on he wrote Roots.
Yes, from Knoxville. We have a dedicated statue to him, and then there's also the Alex Haley Farm that is now located in Clinton. It's also the Children's Defense Fund.
Wow. So, yeah. And one thing that I like to take credit for too is Eat, Pray, Love was finished here in Knoxville in the Oliver Hotel. So that's where they finished writing the book. Yeah. So
and the poet Nikki Giovanni is from Knoxville.
That's right. See, we're just trying to, and of course, Dolly Parton. Obviously, Dolly Parton is from Knoxville. And by the way, that's one thing that
don't say that. Don't you say that. Don't you say that on Dolly Parton.
Well, she got started. She did her first country song in Dollywood in Knoxville, correct?
Yes, but she's from Sevierville, so don't.
Right. Yeah. Don't confuse. They get pissed.
Yeah, controversial.
Dolly Parton is sacred. And her life is canon, and we have to respect that.
Yeah, so make sure, Camille, in your song, that's what I was.
Don't make fun of Dolly Parton.
I love Dolly Parton.
Yeah,
I know. Patron saint of Appalachia.
I love Dolly Parton. Yeah, Dollywood is in my song. It's
yeah. That's definitely in the song too. And,
my
daughter. Did the titties make it into the song?
What did you say?
Did her titties make it into the song?
All I hear is titties. Say it again.
That's all I'm saying. Wait, no.
Parton's titties.
I was saying if her titties. I'm asking if her titties made it into the song. We could
do a cameo. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have their own manager.
Yeah, they have their own manager.
Yeah.
One question.
Manager, like they're.
Yeah, they have their own. Yeah, they have their own agent. And they have their own percentage that they have to take too. Yeah. But so I wanted to ask about your show. So Charlie, you talked about your first stand-up comedy show you've ever done. Your first set on live television was Arsenio Hall. Yep. Charlie was in your belly then. Mm-hmm. Then Charlie was born. Then she had her own show. Yeah. Like Charlie has been documented. By the way, before I do this, I want to make you sad a little bit. I want to play this 1-minute trailer for Charlie that basically sees Charlie from baby to where she is now. And you can actually ask her to come up and sneak behind you while we're doing this. So I'm going to play this real quick. Yeah, hold on.
Come up here, honey.
I'm Charlie. That's me. Just little old Charlie Dean. I'm Charlie. That's me. Oh, won't you come and play with me? I'm Charlie, just Charlie, making friends all over the world. I'm Charlie. That's me. I'm little old Charlie Dean.
So how is it? Isn't that cute? Hey, Charlie.
That was adorable. That's Charlie.
Hey, Blade. Hey, Blade. How does Blade feel? Does Blade get jealous that she doesn't have a show?
Blade is in a lot of episodes, and she had her own episode we shot recently, and she was like, I'm done.
Oh, I would blame. Yeah, it ain't for everybody.
Yeah,
she's doing a lot of episodes, tons of episodes, and we just won. We do a lot of music videos. We just won the Prague Music Video Festival. We came in first place.
What? What was the song? Hey, congratulations!
Don't Pop My Bubble. It's a pop song. I'm in it. I play a crazy teacher, and I direct.
Oh, really? It's funny. You know, it's funny. Blade just walked away.
Yeah.
Blade's over it. Hey, Blade. Hey. So, Charlie, how does it feel that your entire life how is it to have your mom as a director and writer of your entire life?
It's fun.
Is it? Do you ever get tired? You're like, Mom, I just want to play. Why do I have to be on television?
No, I don't really, but sometimes we do. Sometimes.
Charlie, did you write the theme song yourself?
I believe I wrote this. She sang the theme song, but she writes some of the songs. She wrote "Don't Pop My Bubble," that song, with me and Didi O'Malley, who's a country western singer.
Oh, nice.
We write all different types of songs for the show.
And how about you, Blade? How do you feel? Do you ever like fight with your sister to say, you know what? I'm also very talented. I like your olive oil t-shirt, by the way, Blade.
We went in Malta. That's where Popeye was filmed.
Oh, that's where they filmed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Robin Williams, right?
That's right. Blade, what do you think? Do you like doing the show sometimes? Oh, good.
She's very much like Amish.
What do you really enjoy doing though? Like outside of the show, is there anything like this? Like video games? Do you like reading? Do you like playing with toys?
Yeah. They're very, very, very good artists. Drawers. Yeah, very, very good. What do you do,
really?
Charlie?
So when is by the way, too, so one person we're not mentioning here that the ladies don't get to meet is Hamish. So Hamish is your husband, right?
Which is in Hong Kong, your favorite place.
Really? I don't know if they like me. I like it there, but I don't know if they like me there. My wife doesn't even want me to go through the city.
Don't even go through it. He's in Hong Kong.
I'm a resident of Hong Kong, but my wife's like, nope, you're not even flying through it. You're not going to fly through it anymore.
Are you really?
Tell him to say hello to my friends there. But so do y'all miss your dad? Who do you love the most, your dad or your mom? So Blade, Blade, do you love your dad or you love your mom more?
Controversial.
You said both.
Right.
Oh, she did both. Okay, that's a very political answer. So Charlie, who do you love more, your dad or your mom?
Such a troll question.
I know it is. It is a troll question. It's definitely what a man would ask. It would just destroy relationships.
Yeah.
You can be honest, Charlie.
For the laughs.
No.
I wish next time what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to encourage your mom to bring you to Knoxville as well, so you can go to Dollywood.
Yes.
That would be
What's
gonna be
Dolly Parton would. She has her own amusement park.
yeah.
Dollywood.
And by the way, too, it is a lot of fun. I've got a lot of friends who live in Irvine and go to Disneyland. People live in Orlando. There's something about Dollywood that I absolutely love. I mean, Allie and Brandi, have y'all been to Dollywood? Obviously, right?
I have.
I'm gonna say sure. I've definitely done that because I'm so from here, and I definitely did that already.
I'm sorry, Allie. That's me mansplaining. I'm like, you should have.
I had to roll away. My eyes started.
No, I really want to go. I just,
Oh.
it's a whole thing.
Yes. Well, what we're going to do is we don't want to keep all of you. What we're excited about is I really wanted to do a show that just brings the best of, the local. I mean, we've got so many good local comics here. And Camille, I love you to death. And I just wanted to have a show where you could just have fun, get to see the city, and make it a female show. So one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I just don't want to just, we're going to have I'm going to put something up on the screen right now. So what you're going to see is we have on Saturday, we have an all-female cast. So Neil headlining. We have Brandi and Allie being the opening comics. We have Tala and Veronica from Wait TV, who's going to be our co-hosts. It's just going to be all female empowerment. Let's talk. Let's talk about if you got a boyfriend, make sure that they know they're going to be talked about. If you got a husband, I know my wife is going to be talking shit about me during the whole thing. I'm just going to be introing it and throwing it to the women. It's going to be Who Runs the World Girls. So it's going to be a great show.
This sounds way better than one of the first shows I ever did where the male host brought me up and was like, hey, if you laugh at her jokes, she'll have sex with you and
God.
show you her tits. And it's just like,
are you serious?
Oh yeah. It was at the Gold Room in Westbrook, Maine. Never go there.
Oh my God.
It's a not good show in Maine. Most of them are great, and all the other ones, they're fine. But that one was, I was like, dang, dude.
That was crap. Yeah.
But I think a lot of, if you're a female comic, you probably have some kind of similar story of someone, just sort of blatantly. Some dude saying like, "Oh, well, you're actually really funny," or whatever nonsense.
Yeah, or booking you for a show and then not wanting to pay you.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Does that happen?
That happens.
I'm sorry, because you're female, they won't pay you?
Yep.
Oh, that's shit.
Yeah.
Camille, any advice or any stories you have of having to break a glass ceiling? I mean, especially being in LA, that must have been some craziness.
In terms of like a chauvinistic type of situation.
Yeah. And not that we're trying to get a lawsuit started.
No, I don't. There's definitely I remember one time there was a heckler that was just, sometimes you get this guy that will sit in the front row. There's one guy sitting in the front row and hating you because
that's the thing.
It's the insidious or
their arms are crossed like this,
in the front row. And I remember this one guy. I just saw, every so often I lose it on him. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and you're like, I guess I'm throwing away my set tonight because I'm just gonna rearrange your skills. You know what I mean? I don't care. It's North Hollywood. We're just gonna. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I remember this guy. I was like, ooh, so we're really angry today, huh? You know what I mean? And I remember it just went on, but it was so it went on and on and on. And I was like, oh, this wasn't supposed to be this wasn't supposed to go down this path, but it did. And then I just committed to it. You know what I mean? Until finally he walked out. And everyone's like, yay! And then my friend goes, that was my investor.
Oh,
no. Screw him. You don't want that money. That's dirty money. You don't want that money.
You don't need all money, pounds of money.
To me, it's usually quiet, or Not So Quiet did a really, really big show. And this guy, the host, really threw me under the bus after I went on stage. And I remember that was really devastating because there's nothing you can do about it. You've gone on
What do you
stage.
mean? What do you mean? What did he do? How did he throw you under the bus?
Just like he just put me down as a human being. Oh, you think you're, you know, and it was like, what? You know, like, and people were like, the audience was like, what
Shocked.
are you doing? Like this is so crazy. Like, and also once you're off stage, you can't defend yourself. You're like,
Right.
all I could say to him afterward was like, and I was really nice about it. And I could see afterwards, I was like, and this is a packed out show in Hollywood, right? And
Right.
I was like, hi, I just wanted to say what you did was really mean. You know, and I was like a mom, you know, like
inappropriate.
yeah, like he goes, oh, I wasn't trying to offend you as an artist. I'm like, oh no, you definitely offended me as an artist. I said, but what you did was actually just really mean. And I think it just freaked him out. I said, I just wanted to let you know. And then I walked away and people were like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, at least he knows, you know?
Right.
But every so often, yeah, you do get it, but it comes quietly. Usually, it's a quiet meanness, you know.
And on a positive note too about being a woman in comedy, especially when it's like you're in a really male-dominated scene. One of the things I got a lot of satisfaction of is when I started to get better, because like when there's so many male comics, it's so much easier to be better than like most of them. And then once you start getting all the better spots, oh, like it's so bad. It is so good. And like, oh, you get to headline. Oh, I'm headlining this, you know, this show over here that you've never got to do before. Is it because I'm a chick or is it because I'm funnier than you? Oh man,
yeah,
that feels good.
Yes.
But that's always nice.
Yeah.
And you, Brandi, the
crushed
same way?
egos.
Did you ever get to talk to your ex-husband and say, look how funny I am? Because he did open mic.
I feel like,
and
Brandi, you're like
No.
Marvelous Mrs. Brandi in a way, right?
Yeah.
Of Knoxville. That's so.
So, well, with my ex-husband, he was so hurt by our split that he actually moved to LA. He's not even, he moved out of the state.
Wow.
He changed.
Is he still doing comedy? Can I look him up?
I have no idea. He was a much better musician than he was a comedian. So I hope he's still doing music. But we don't really
I'm
keep
like looking him up. I'm like, what's his name?
Well, put it in the chat. Put it in the private chat. I don't want to get in trouble.
Scene and
Yeah, put it in the
Yeah.
private chat. Yeah. So I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want him to be like hating on us and that type of thing. But
I know his little sister still follows me.
yeah, and this is live stream, so there we go. Yeah. Well, is there anything that you know,
you.
Allie or Brandi, you would like to ask Camille before we wrap this up? Anything that you want her to know about, or you know, ask her a question, or anything you'd like to kind of put out there?
Yes.
Nope. Okay.
So I don't think we talked about how long, like how many years have you been doing comedy?
Yeah,
And
right.
then when did you feel like you found your voice?
That's a
great
good
question.
question. I guess I started 2.5 years before the Arsenio Hall Show. So that was 2014. So 2012, I guess I started. And I definitely was different in the beginning. Like I definitely was more of a caricature when I started comedy. And then, and people say I hear different things. People say when you first start comedy, everything's about your private parts. But I wasn't. I never really went there for some reason. Mine was more like I played a character, you know, like, and they still have it on like Comedy Time. Like Comedy Time is this comedy. I'm like, you guys, they keep such old stuff on there. I'm like, oh my God, that's so different.
Yeah, it's pretty old. I remember seeing that. I've got that.
Yeah, it's so old. And then I would say, I don't know. I think it was like it definitely took. I mean, it definitely took I got out of it. So at the time I was on Arsenio, I was just doing jokes, and I wasn't I was more myself. And then I think you just get confidence. There's some people say if you do 10,000 hours of comedy on stage, then you're a pro. Someone said that to me once, but I don't know if that's true. I think you could do it much earlier than that. But I'd say it definitely took a few years, I think.
Yeah. So when people say that, I'm like, 10,000 hours. Do you mean 10,000 hours of these 5-minute sets that
No,
we get?
I don't think
That's
so.
a lot of shows.
I think
Yeah.
over time you're practicing and stuff like that. You know, like I would always, there's a lot of time. I always like, you know, especially when you're like, I mean, I try and take a lot of time to refigure out the lineup of your jokes and rework them. And that's got to count. Otherwise, who's going to make that?
Right.
Yeah, nobody.
No one's going to do it. So, but I definitely, yeah. And you know, it's so funny. You can tell people that are, when you see someone do comedy, and I have friends, and you're like, you are not your voice. You can tell when someone is not their voice. You're like watching them and you're like, did someone tell you to do that? Because right. You know what I mean? Like you're like, just be yourself, whatever that is, you know, like, and sometimes being a character is yourself. Like that's you're more of an actor-y comedian. But I've noticed that. I have a friend and I see her and I'm like, and I think I saw her recently after like 7 years. And then she was actually finally, I'm like, you know, like it was always like mom jokes. And I'm like, do you really identify as a mother? Like I think I felt like someone told her to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and finally when she was just doing stuff that she was interested in, I was like, oh, well, this is really funny. I don't know. Can you tell, Gary, like when you see you're like something about him is not authentic?
Well, I mean, I learned the hard way. I was doing comedy for a long, long time, trying to write jokes. And I just thought that, and don't get me wrong, joke writing is its own beautiful art form. I'm definitely not an improv. I can't do improv, but my voice is me. You know, I realize that I get more jokes. Let me just say, when I make my wife laugh, I know I'm being authentic. You know, and so that's helped me out a lot. Before I was just trying to hook up with the ladies being funny, but that doesn't really work either, you know. So
it doesn't. It doesn't. I've tried that too. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and they want you to be the funny person all the time. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
No, but Gary, you're very natural, Gary. Like you're such a great comic yourself. Like you're I think it's just the natural gift of just being able to keep on talking and off the cuff jokes you do all the time, Gary. Like you're a great host, and I don't know if
I want to make myself laugh, but you know, I after the Hong Kong situation, I gave up. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was really done. I was actually scared of what I'm doing right now. The only reason there's two reasons why I feel like I'm doing what the Hip2B². First of all, I like Hip2B² because it's a Huey Lewis song. So that's first thing. But then the second thing is that I really wanted to friends from the old friends. And I just felt like this is my home now. I have a home here. And I wanted to make sure there was a reason for my old friends from all over the world to come to visit. Right. And one thing that I don't think the Knoxville crowd knows too is that, you know, there's a lot of comedians that are out there overseas that are so funny, and you'll get to meet them as we bring them over. But they're going to jail for comedy. Now, I went to jail for a legitimate reason. That's a whole other subject. But I had a bad heckler, and I was an asshole host. But anyway, there's some comics that are doing jokes to be funny, and they're going to jail, like Rizal, who in Malaysia, and they're just so funny. And I wanted to have a place that if all hell breaks loose, I wanted to be able to come to Knoxville, Tennessee, and always be able to do a set and crush it. And so that was, you know, one of the reasons that I wanted to be able to do this and bring, you know, people together and have a voice, you know, just be honest. There's so much shitty division that's happening. And once you get into a comedy club, and I get it, there's some politics. I try to bring comics in that are not trying to be political. But once you're sitting in a crowd, whether you're Christian or Jewish, a Muslim, something's funny is funny. And that I just wanted to make sure I mashed that up and bring that in. So anyway, that's just kind of but I'm not funny. I'm just very honored to be surrounded by amazingly funny people. And I want to mash them up and just sit back and watch. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm stepping all over Allie's question.
What was your Allie's?
I guess I was gonna ask. It sounds like you're on the road a lot, just doing shows all over the place, and I guess I guess more of a general like, how do you handle that? I mean, it's a lot of. It sounds like it's a lot of working out all the bookings, traveling around, very strenuous. Being away from home a lot, balancing the relationships. Like I've absolutely burnt some of my relationships to the ground by just being gone a lot. You know what I mean? And it's like how do you do all that?
Well, I mean, my husband and I, we would go together with the family. Before COVID, I was doing like maybe 4 to 6 international shows a year, which is a lot because it's a massive. And I prefer the shows honestly because on an international show, it's a holiday with your family as well. So that's why it was great. And I rarely would do domestic shows because it wasn't really a holiday, and it was hard to find venues that I like I said, the Miami, Oklahoma venues. I just don't know if my voice is really the right voice for a lot of that. So my agent was. I'd get offered a lot of gigs here, but I was like, oh, I don't know. Like I remember I have this rap about cougars called cougarfuneral.com, and like, and I was like, it was just a super cougar Jewish audience. And I'm like, usually the Jews love me. You know what I mean? I'm from a Jewish town. And like, these women were so serious. They were like, yeah, I'm a cougar. And I'm like, I know, so am I. Like, okay. I remember it was just, it was, anyway. So it was just easier to get reality with people internationally, and also I really like performing with people that are new to comedy in a way too, or where they never see women comedians. They're like, in our country, like in Jordan, they're like, our women are locked up. You know what I mean? And so like when they say me, they're like, this guy was like, in Arabic was like, are you a stripper? You know what I mean? Like he didn't understand. And he came up and tried to give me cash afterwards. And I was like, who speaks Arabic here? Can they explain? Like the clothes are not coming off. The jokes are coming off.
Wow.
So, I didn't really answer your question, but the international shows I would always be with my family. The domestic shows not as much. So, and my kids get so sad when I'm leaving. They're like, "You're leaving?" It's hard for me to even get out in LA to do a show sometimes. They're like, "How long are you going to be gone?" So yeah.
But you
depending
also
on how the show's handled, like 2 to 7 hours usually. The show's it's the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, you also have an amazing husband too. I think Hamish definitely believes in what you do. He's very supportive. I don't get to hang out with him as much as you do, obviously, but I love your husband. And
you guys are both techie geeks. That's great.
Yeah. He's a nerd. I'm a nerd, so it works out great. Well, let me just say, I know we've gone over a little bit. I said I told everybody it would be 30 minutes, but I just love having all of you talking and connecting. Any last thing, any advice for any wannabe female comics that might be watching this now or in the future? Anything you would like to put out there? Any of you?
You are just as funny, if not funnier, than these male comics out here.
Don't let the bastards grind you down.
Oh, that's my dad would always say. Oh my God, Allie. My dad would say, don't let the bastards get you down. That's like a
Latin hell phrase.
Yeah, that's true.
Bad advice. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a whole new world now. Now it's a good time to be a woman in comedy. It is. Maybe it wasn't like that probably 10 years ago. It was trickier, but now I feel like it's
getting easier. And I think the other one, this was advice a male comic gave me, so ew. But it was just because I was complaining about just certain gigs or how I was treated on certain things, and he would just be like, "Dude, just take the gig." And that's hard advice to give to a female comic because it's almost just saying like, take the abuse a little bit, take the go to all these bad shows and grind it out. And it's like you don't necessarily have to do that, but put yourself out there more. And unfortunately, there are going to be situations where it's like, yeah, you're the only one there for, whether it's your style comedy or whatever it is. But that's what makes it all the more important that you go. And the whole reason we have a better situation for female comedians is because, a bunch of people did that. and now it's, better for everybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say get better in your own town first.
Well, yeah. That's
get better in your own town. I started in LA, which was like, you don't want to be bad in LA. Because then they're like the bookers of the clubs are like, ooh, yeah, we'll check you out in like another 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're like, oh, she moved here from Miami, Oklahoma, and she's just chasing her dreams.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's good to if you can, get better in your place where you're comfortable, and then if you want to move, but there's 10,000 comedians in Los Angeles, so it's very competitive. But you don't have
to go to
LA.
Austin either.
What's that?
I said don't go to Austin either. Comedians
are
flocking to Austin, Texas.
Oh, I know. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nashville is probably, and that's another thing that I love about Knoxville. I think that they say Knoxville is the new Austin. We're at the beginning of it. I think it's going to blow up here. And all of y'all are so brilliant, so creative. Just honored to be around all of you. And I'm very excited about hosting this weekend. I think this is going to be a phenomenal show.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So I can't wait. Safe flight to get here. I can't think. I want to give a shout out to Allie and Brandi for trekking all the way over to my home and dealing. And my poor wife had to, she took care of you. So thank you so much for coming through. And I can't wait to perform with all of you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Gary. Nice to meet you, Allie and Brandi.
Yeah, me too. See you Friday.
See you on Friday. And by the way, too, if anybody, just to let everybody know, there is a little, I wouldn't say it's a competition, but we do have coupon codes. So, for example, if you are a friend of, if you're a friend of Allie, you have a coupon code for Allie for $5 off. There we go. Yeah. And then if you're a friend of Brandi, we have a coupon code for Brandi. So we do. And by the way, for every ticket that they sell using their coupon, which is cool, they get a little kickback. So you want to make sure you're helping a comedian, you're buying a ticket to laugh, and you're also supporting them. So just want to make sure. Poor you, Camille. We're just gonna have you come in on Thursday. We're gonna film a music video for you. That's all. That's all we got. Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, let's shut this down. I'm gonna close this out, which I think you're probably gonna laugh. So everybody, stay on. We'll talk right after this, just privately. But I'm gonna show a little bit of Camille's set when she was actually at the Laugh Factory, so in LA. So here we go. And bye, everybody.
Bye. But here's the thing. I live in a really cool part of Los Angeles. I live in downtown. I really love it there. We live on the corner of 9th and Crack Pipe. It's a little dodgy. You know what I mean? I don't even like to go out there. I'm like afraid to leave my apartment. You know what I mean? I just feel like I grew up on the East Coast and I feel like the homeless people, the homeless people on the East Coast are so like, they're just different than the homeless people in Los Angeles, okay? No, they're just different. You know what I mean? We're not judging. You know what I mean? But on the East Coast, they're just kind of drunk. You know what I mean? Like, hey man, can I get $1? You know what I mean? And you give them a bag. Grateful. You know what I mean? In LA, okay. They're like hopped up on like broken dreams and crystal meth. Okay, this guy comes up to me, I'm like walking, and they're so awake, you know what I mean? They're like, hey, you! You know what I mean? I'm like, what? You know what I mean? He's like, I got an idea for a movie! It stars a homeless guy who's stuck in a love triangle with his pet rat and his imaginary girlfriend. It's a biopic! I'm like, okay, here's $1. He's like, I get exec producer credit. I'm like, that kind of selfish attitude is what got you there in the first place. So I don't even like to go out. I was walking out. I was like, I had to walk my dog. You know what I mean? And there was this lady coming towards me, and she seemed normal, you know what I mean? I mean, she was just wearing a dirty bathrobe, but she seemed normal, you know what I mean? I just thought maybe she's rich. You know how like rich people wear shitty clothes, you know what I mean? Like so, you know, because they don't care because I'm rich, you know what I mean? And she was kind of pretty, you know what I mean? Like she just had that. Anyway, you know that sort of when you're really an alcoholic and you sort of look tan, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, she has bronzer on, you know what I mean? Anyway, she was coming towards me, and you know you can't tell someone's crazy until you get close enough to fucking, like, you know what I mean? Look in your eye, you it's too, you know what I mean? And she's walking, and then she's like, I'm like, ah, you know what I mean? And then she full on flashes me, right? I'm like, oh my God, and my dog's like, I love Los Angeles. He's a Boston Terrier.